What is the most important thing that we can give to our kids? Well, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the answer to that is time. It's the one thing that we all have drilled into us as the conventional wisdom. Time is the most important thing that we give to our kids. But is it really time that's the most important thing? If it were, then all the great humans of history would surely have come from a stay-at-home mum. So of course not. I can give you hundreds of examples of people whose parents didn't work, but the kids ended up being messed up. And likewise, there's countless examples of parents who have gone out to work, who have raised confident, happy human beings that have grown up to be a massive success. So if time isn't the most important thing, then what is it? Well, every rags to riches story starts with one thing: belief. Belief in themselves, belief that they can be happy, belief that they can be successful, belief that they can be wealthy, belief that they can change the world and have an impact. And that's the thing that we need to instill in our kids. That's the most important thing that we can give them. But what is a belief? Well, here's the beautiful thing about beliefs. Well, beliefs aren't truths. In fact, they're just a story that we tell ourselves to make sense of the world. And if a belief doesn't serve us, then we can change it. I used to think that I was the sort of person who didn't go in the sea, who didn't like water sports, who hated being cold and wet. But in attempting to raise daughters with a can-do attitude, I realised that I needed to make sure that I have that same attitude myself. So when my wife decided back in February that she was going to start wild swimming, at first I thought that she was mad, but then she challenged me. If you want your daughter to be adventurous, then you need to be prepared to do the same. So I agreed. And as we walked down to the river, it was a particularly cold morning, and these waves of panic flooded over me. And then all of a sudden, this memory came back to me. And it was a moment when I was about 14 and I had a morning paper round. And on this particular morning in winter, I walked out the front door pushing my bike, and there was about 3 inches of snow on the ground. I didn't have a coat on, and despite the fact that the snow was still falling, I just decided, what the hell, I'm going to go anyway. So off I went. And my paper round was on the far end of the village, so it was the furthest that I could possibly have had to have gone. I fell off a dozen times as I was going around, and I was absolutely sopping wet, freezing cold. And when I got back, I thought I was going to die. I couldn't even open the front door. My dad let me in, stripped me off, and put me in front of the fire to warm up. That was an even worse idea. It hurt like hell. And without really knowing it, after that moment, I'm pretty sure that's when I stopped going in the sea on holidays. And I hated being cold, hated being wet. And as a result, even on our honeymoon in Thailand, I sat on the beach and watched as my wife went in the sea and had a great swim in what was lovely water. When I realised that my hatred of cold water stemmed from this experience and not from the water itself, it became much easier. And when I got into that water, yes, it was freaking cold. But when I got out, I didn't die. I warmed up, and actually, if anything, that tingling sensation that you get when you walk out is actually so invigorating. I actually genuinely enjoyed that moment. The truth is that I've always loved the idea of water sports, but the story I told myself held me back. And the story that you tell yourself can often get passed on to your kids. The language that you use often is a reflection of those stories. We have stories in our heads about everything from relationships to money, attitudes to risk. And when we're talking about those kids, they often will get passed on without us even knowing. So if we want our kids to grow up to be happy, confident, adventurous, curious, can-do kids, then we need to start with ourselves. What are the stories that we're telling ourselves on a day-to-day basis? And if a story doesn't help us, then we need to change that story before it gets written into the life of our kids. Hey now, if you are new to this channel, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications down below so that you are informed every time I upload a new video. And please leave a comment down below with what your biggest takeaway was from this video. My aim here at Memory Makers is to help parents curate a set of memories for their kids that can become the foundation for how those kids see themselves in the future, so that they can be confident, creative, curious, adventurous, all these things that we want for our kids in life. So if you are looking to do that with yours, then join us along for the journey.